From a professional soccer career to becoming a driving force in the mortgage industry, Brian Covey has shown what it takes to find your competitive edge. Get off the sidelines and get in the game. Find your competitive edge with Brian Covey.
Welcome back to another edition of Finding Your Competitive Edge with Brian Covey. I am so excited today because as we set out on the show, not only is this one in person, this is one of my good friends, somebody that's had a massive influence in my life. The mortgage community is already going to know who this is, so you guys will be excited. But if you're not in mortgage, you need to stay really dialed in today, because if you're an entrepreneur, if you're somebody in sales, if you're building teams, if you want to know how technology and AI and all these things are going to affect your life, we're going to talk about all that today. So my good friend Dave Savage, not only has he been someone that's led the mortgage industry, one of the best collaborators, I would say, is in the industry, and he's built a massive community of people that just show up to give, and they help each other. And I believe that's what we need to win today. So not only is he a fellow Amplify attendee, we were talking about that earlier, but Dave came out to Nashville to meet with some other mortgage companies and some friends. We were jamming this morning, and we're going to have some fun today. We're going to share with you guys some things that you may not have heard about, that you, in your life and your journey, you're going to need these tools to win today. So Dave, my friend, welcome.
Hey, it's good to be here. I love this studio. I love the session we had this morning, and really nothing I love professionally more than just masterminding with people that are smart and hungry.
Yeah. So you've led with that, and I want to start there because one of your superpowers, I always look at people and try to assess, okay, what do they do different? What has made them successful? Almost like their competitive edge. You have collaborated and created a community like no one else, not just in the mortgage space, but it's now starting to bleed over into real estate, financial planning. I feel like you've got people, by the way, that watch some of your shows that I introduced to. They're not even real estate or mortgage. There's like, this is a really cool conversation. And recently, AI and other things you've brought on, some of that. What really led you to start building out the community, and where did that stem from for you?
Well, first of all the success I've had in mortgage and as an entrepreneur, it's happened from networking and masterminding, and not in learning in non-traditional ways. Traditional education, institutional education was very difficult for me. I think I've said it many a times. I am ADD. I know the world is ADD now, but I was that kid taking Ritalin in grade school. I am dyslexic, and so institutional learning was difficult. But masterminding, like meeting people that are killing it and being intentional with those relationships, it's how I grew my career. Even early in the mortgage space, I went from my first mentor, thank you, Mel Samick. I will always be grateful for the man who brought me into the mortgage space. But I got to a certain point where I need a new mentor. So it's how I've been wired. It's how I've grown as a professional.
And you've told the story about the ADHD and ADD and all this stuff and dyslexia and all that stuff. How hard was that for you to move and to overcome that? Because you've shared some of that story, but probably people listening go, that's me, or I have a son or daughter that's dealing with it today. Was that something that you battled with for a while and you found a resolution, or is it something like today you still?
No, well, today I think it is absolutely a superpower. I graduated. I actually got my degree in high school. So I overcame it. Of course, I did not have good grades, and I did not want to go to college, although I did go to college because I thought that's what I was supposed to do, until I was recruited into the mortgage space and found books on tape and learned that, I can learn other ways other than reading. And I do still read. I have a lot of books. Actually, building out my office right now, there'll be a lot of books in my library. I love books, but I just don't read them from cover to cover very often. Maybe once a year, I'll read one or two books cover to cover. The rest of them, I'll scan them for ideas. And so I guess I've overcome it because I can get a book and I can, without reading the whole book, pull out a tremendous amount of value.
When I see that with you, you bring value, whether it's the mortgage community or not. You're always sharing ideas and concepts. You're almost, I think of you as like very futuristic. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that came from that because you almost in a way have to plan for the future, because when you're going through all of that, you got to think what's ahead. And I think that tied into technology. Where did you start to get in your entrepreneurial journey? Where did that begin for you?
It began a little bit before I got into the mortgage industry. I always wanted to be an inventor, create things. So there were a few attempted inventions that never went anywhere. Yeah. And the mortgage space is where my entrepreneur journey started. I had a very different approach. I think the best thing that happened to me during that mortgage journey is that I landed on this value proposition that my advice makes a difference. And then, I've really spent my entire adult life being someone whose advice makes a difference and using that as a competitive advantage. And then that led to the creation of Mortgage Coach. Like, let's create a tool and a piece of technology that would allow a loan officer to deliver on that value proposition.
So let's talk about that, because today there's two camps. We talk about this. You got people that, let's just call them loan officers. They're still just kind of pushing paper. They're just sending out disclosures. They're quoting rates, and they're basic, right? They could be getting replaced, and we've talked about this a little bit. But you have this other camp, and you always coin them as mortgage advisors, and I love that. They're giving trusted advice. They've got trust built. People will actually call them for advice, maybe won't even do anything with them. How do you separate those two, and what's your thoughts on that? How can you become the one that's going to be the advisor and not just somebody that is a transactional based, just going through the motions?
Well, I think what I'm going to say next applies to all industries and all entrepreneurs. And it's also not necessarily a new concept that anyone who's listening hasn't heard before, but like, the more value you create for others, the more value you get. And then that's been a tenet throughout my career. Now, how well do you execute at that is another thing. And, in the mortgage space, and I think this also translates into just about all industries, loan officers deliver a mortgage transaction. At the end of the day, when a consumer goes to a loan officer, they want a loan, typically to buy a home or to refinance a home. And the product is the interest rate, the cost that it gets that consumer, and the monthly payment. And so I think if that's all you're doing is providing education advice around the transaction, you're a loan officer. And whatever anyone listening to this, whatever entrepreneurial endeavor you have, I always look for, like, how do we use technology to become a valuable service to a consumer? And how can we actually go beyond the transaction and deliver service? Now, I love technology because, one, it helps augment some of my deficiencies. I fell in love with CRM because of spell check. I fell in love with video because I never misspelled a word with video. I fell in love with Mortgage Coach because it helped me deliver advice at scale, leveraging technology. So I think, my push, and I hope by next year, I don't even use the word loan officer anymore. It's just, we're creating this advice revolution, and that's one goal in the mortgage space. But I'd love to see that in every industry out there. I think it'd be great for America if people that are local, referral-based professionals, insurance, real estate, financial planning, that they really executed going beyond the transaction.
And I love that you shared that, because you probably get this question. I get it a lot of, Brian, I see what you're doing in real estate and mortgage. How do I get into these industries? And yours is unique, right? Because a lot of people are like, well, I've got to be a loan officer. I've got to be a processor. I've got to do whatever these traditional roles are. Yours is unique. What advice would you give to someone that's young today? They're exploring careers, like, I like this real estate mortgage thing. Like, how do I get started in it? And you've done it in a unique way. What advice would you give them?
Well, first of all, I always tell people, find mentors, interview mentors, mastermind with people. Don't be afraid to call someone and say, hey, I'd love to have coffee with you and get to know you. So if you were wanting to get into mortgage or real estate, and now it's easier than ever to find people, social media, you can get a vibe for who is doing things and who's not doing things. There's also a lot of data now, like who are the most successful people. I do believe in success leads clues. So, find a mentor that is successful, that has some values that you share, that someone that you love to be around and you want to be around, and go out there and make that your job, finding your mentor in whatever endeavor you have. And when you think there's more to be learned, go find another mentor. It doesn't mean you need to leave that mentor. Just means life is a journey of connecting with human beings, learning from human beings, being inspired and educated, and just never stop doing that. It's fun. Just like I loved today. I know. Yesterday I was with my, Churchill family, masterminding. It was amazing. This morning it was with you and two other local professionals that are all super hungry, super fun-loving people. Like, it makes work fun.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
That was the cool part about today. And you struck a chord with me, because I get this question a lot, and I share a lot of my journey from sports. Some of my best coaches, my dad was my first coach. I share that often. And then I had another coach in soccer that stayed with me for over a decade, which is typically unheard of. And they were a huge influence in not only my skills, but my mindset, like how I became a goalkeeper in soccer and the craziness that position.
I forget you were a goalkeeper in soccer. I mean, being a goalkeeper in any, like my son plays lacrosse, being a goalkeeper, man, it takes a special type of human being.
We're going to talk about that because your son in lacrosse, there's some parallels I've noticed just kind of watching his journey. But I think about mentors, and you were sharing that as like people often ask, Brian, where did you find mentors? Where did you have this? And early in my career, I was fortunate to find mentors there. And since you mentioned it, I know people are probably asking like, okay, Dave, like how do I go find a mentor today? I'm on social media. Is there anything that you would do differently that social's there? Because they could find them online today. Or how would you know what you're looking for in a mentor?
Yeah, well, first of all, you've got a network. You have people. It's one of my 10 most important books I've ever read is The Power of Who by Bob Beaudine. Like, guys, we know everyone we need to know to get to someone. Yeah. I do think you need to be clear about what you want. I'm a big documenter. I do have a handwritten journal that I use. I do have, I think, over 10,000 notes in Evernote. Wow. So I use Evernote. So, journal on that. Like, I use a process I called OGSM, and it's, what's my objective? What are my goals? And then what are my strategies? And I do that for just about everything I want to go get. I'm starting a new podcast, and I documented that out. So put a little pen to paper, and what are you looking for? And then the strategies are, what are the reach outs? Friends and family, social media, industry events. Have some strategies, get some options. Have multiple opportunities for yourself, and then take one. I mean, if you do that in just about everything in life, good things will happen in business life.
I love that. And networking for me, it's often said, it's not just who you know, but it's also who knows you now. And to make those connections, you're just one person away. Yeah. We were walking in, I had the book, Ed Mylett's book, Power of One More. And I've told people there's been one person sometimes in a season for me, one person that either mentored me or shared something with me that changed the trajectory of my life and my family. So if you're not reaching out to those people, find them. And I would also share this. I don't know if your experience is like this. Sometimes I think I'm finding my mentor, and I've reached out to people only to find out they know someone that's even better. They're like, hey, I'm not the right one for you. But if this is what you're going after, and you mentioned earlier, like be clear, have clarity of what you want to accomplish in your goals, and they introduce you to someone as they go forward.
Absolutely.
I think that's going to be the piece as we navigate this industry, especially mortgage. And I know all of our mortgage friends would be upset if I didn't ask you a little bit on the market, right? Because I'm sure they're like, okay, Brian and Dave, what's happening in the market? What do you see going forward? And I think we go a lot of different directions, but I'm just going to open it up, let you go where you want to go. What do you think's going to happen and the changes we should be prepared for the rest of 2023? Just keeping that.
Well, I'll leave it to some of the forecasters, the economists, to predict when are rates going to 4.5. But I still believe sometime in the next 24 months, rates are going to 4.5 or very close, a little high, a little low.
Sure.
Directionally, that's where they're going. So I think it's never been more important, spring home buying season right now. And it's still the first inning of spring home buying season, is that you're having very thoughtful conversations with every client you're talking to. And you're laying that foundation that, hey, I'm not a loan officer. I'm going to help you build wealth with real estate, and I'm going to help you make a decision that not only is the best decision for you today, but I'm going to manage that decision.
That's right.
Use tools like Sales Boomerang to track that, and then when it makes sense for you to refinance, and they've got technology, they've got Sales Boomerang, they've got Mortgage Coach. We're literally teeing up these opportunities. So I just think you need to think of every loan as 3 loans right now. And I do believe that while realtors are still the alpha referral partner,
sure,
your database is where the gold is at.
Yeah.
Like if I had a message and I could just change the mind of loan officers, like your number one priority should be your database. I love what Sean, one of the guys we mastermind today, brought up. You should be making 10 database calls a day. You should be making sure that when you do get a signal from your database that it makes sense, you're calling those folks. So I think if you're just making your database your number one priority, and you're playing the game as like, where is the puck going?
That's right.
Your every spring home buying conversation, you're showing that family, hey, here's some options today, and then you're planting that seed. And this is what economists think rates are going to do. So those are that's I think super important.
Well, I think that's the context we all need to be thinking of is we don't know exactly when, but directionally we know where things are going, right? And we don't expect rates to go the other way. And for a lot of loan officers, I love how you said to be thinking of your database, but also be thinking of 3 loans in one. And that today really hit me about the database and reaching out today. And a lot of the skills were lost over the last couple of years, I believe. You're just answering orders, and everybody was getting a low 2, 3, 4% rate. It's like we weren't really prospecting. We weren't really guiding people. We weren't really solving problems other than, yeah, you want a lower rate? I got it. Like that's all we solve for. So how do people position themselves? You've done this on social, and we'll kind of pivot to this is now that you know you need to be calling your database, you need to be prospecting, doing all these things. How does social come into all of that today?
Well, before I answer the social, which I think is a key cornerstone, when I've interviewed top producers and I look at the ones that they're either flat, their production's not down 50%, or they could even be up a little bit, like Denise Donahue, the mortgage nerd. They've got a brand, but they also are very focused on educating people, inspiring, educating people around home ownership and what that can mean. So I think first-time home buyers are super important, and I think that aligns with social media. If I was an originator and when I interview the best of the best, they are creating content around, the true American dream, which is home ownership with financial freedom, and something I shared from stage at Churchill yesterday was this concept of financial freedom lending. Mm-hmm. The best, they're not selling low rates and I can close your loan on time. They're selling home ownership with financial freedom. Yeah. So I think creating content around that, creating personal brand around that. You heard Keith in our conversation earlier where he talked about being the captain of the wealth team. Yeah. That means being so smart yourself from a financial literacy standpoint, invest in real estate, be someone who is smart financially and then create content around that. That's what I'd be doing.
Oh, I love that. And let's unpack that more because a lot of people don't probably even know where to start, right? Because you go, man, the Keiths of the world or Sean's of the world or like what you're doing out there. They go, well, I'm not there, Dave. I'm just starting out. So for those loan officers, let's just take the ones that are down. And they're like, man, this is a really rough market. They've never been through it before. They didn't do the reps. They didn't do the social. Is there a way for them to get in the game today? And we mentioned some tools, so we'll probably touch on those in a minute because I want to make sure we get into Mortgage Coach and Sales Boomerang. But where would you start? If you're a new loan officer today, last few years you got in the business, and you're like, man, this is a new market. Where do I go?
Well, what I'm going to say, I'm truly not doing this because I, lead the Mortgage Coach community, but I think our YouTube channel and Mortgage Coach
is one of the best. I'll say it for you.
Yeah,
it is.
I mean, it's a really powerful place where you can learn from loan officers in every state in America and every demographic in America and hear and see how people are doing it. But I mean, invest in these communities. Go to the events, go to Renee Rodriguez Amplify, go to the upcoming Mortgage Mastermind event. I'm super bummed that it doesn't look like Todd Duncan's going to do another Sales Mastery this year, but go to events, get out there, mastermind, and then I would love to see more loan officers just masterminding in their own communities. Like we did a 4-person mastermind before we did this. Get out there and take a whoever you want to be. If you're in mortgage, take a loan officer out to lunch or coffee, and if you're an entrepreneur in another industry, just mastermind, network, and get out and connect.
I love that. Yeah, and even this morning, like what we did, guys, I'm just going to break this down for you, is this was universal for all of us, I believe, is we shared ideas, so we all got to learn, which is phenomenal. We got to connect. We had breakfast, and then we went, and we actually created some content that Dave, you led.
There you go.
And it was so simple. Guys, within an hour and a half, not only did we learn things, we connected, we had a better relationship, but we all left going, wow, I have something now. I have created content that I'm going to be able to share and put out in the marketplace. So think about as you go through your day. I shared this one was document your day and what you're learning instead of trying to be this big creator. Like I'm not an actor. I'm not going to be in a movie. That's not my jam. But I can document things that I'm reading, I'm learning, and I'm studying. And I can learn from other people and share those concepts.
And I just want to really push home how easy it is. While we were fortunate that one of the people we were masterminding had an office 4 minutes from where we were and happened to have an incredible studio because he's very serious about creating brand and creating content and education in his community. But we could have literally gone out to the hood of one of our cars. I have a tripod, or I could have opened up my laptop, could have hit record. Yeah. The mic wouldn't have been as good. The lighting wouldn't have been as slick. But we could have created some incredible content, and we could have done it with something that we all walk around with,
That's right.
a mobile phone in our pocket. So, I did love how you talked about documenting versus creation, because I think that intimidates a lot of people. Personally, I like content that is just documentation and not this creative, curated experience. Like you and I did not prep while we're in a pretty awesome studio.
Yeah.
This is a conversation, with no prep.
Yeah. I'll go back to the podcast was Conversations with Covey, right? So that was what it was, the book and all this stuff. And I go, man, the best things I've learned are conversations. That's how we've all learned. We move forward. So I want to jump into this, and we're switching to technology because this is a lot of your background. You know a lot about what's happening. We talked about this morning, this whole Chat GPT, AI coming out, and you see people posting now, and you can tell I'm picking up on when they've curated it from there, and people are starting to lose a little bit of the human touch. But let's talk about how you can leverage it, right? So if you're a loan officer today, you're a real estate agent, any sales, I think, even an entrepreneur, what are you saying people can start to leverage some of that AI and that technology, whether it's social or just in their day-to-day? Because I know you're doing some of this.
Oh, yeah. I mean, first of all, very impressed, wowed with ChatGPT and where it's at and how valuable it can be to augment your knowledge and your ability to create educational content. I do think, if all you do is ask GPT a question and cut and paste it and post, you're not creating a brand. There's not authenticity. You're Wikipedia. And I don't think that's valuable. The more you're using it to be a better you and to help you communicate more effectively, to create more content, to create better content, to me, that's what it's all about. It's about, and it's like that with all things. I mean, even you take the technology we have. I think, technology can create a total cost analysis.
Oh, yeah.
Today, we have integrations that will create a total cost analysis. But when a human being who knows the story, who knows the goals, who has all this context, they augment it, it's better. It's more valuable. Yeah. The alerts that come from Sales Boomerang, we can automate, have those trigger automated communication messages. But always when it's this combination of a human being being an awesome, curious, creative, connecting human being, but they're leveraging technology to be at the right place at the right time, or they're leveraging technology to deliver even more valuable content. That's where all the magic is. And I do believe I'm good. I can't remember if I posted over the weekend, but after listening to the recent interview with Lex Friedman and the CEO of ChatGPT, ChatGPT and technology is going to take the job of some loan officers. Yeah. But local, referral-based originators that are leveraging these technologies, they're going to take the job of all loan officers. Yeah. You really need to be that human being that leverages this next generation of technology, in my opinion.
I agree. Some of the posts we've even done, and I'll tell you guys from a tactical level, is I'll have an idea, I'll have something I've learned, somebody has shared with me, and then I do go in there and I pull some things out. But you're right, I'm having a conversation, and usually it's 3, 4, 5 questions I'm asking. Yeah. And I'm curating that. I'm going, okay, what would be valuable? Okay, I'm going to take that. That gave me an idea, and I'm going to write it in my own words so then it produces out and goes, oh, this is Brian. And I add a story in there, right? Like, tell a story. Don't just, like you said, Wikipedia. I'm not reposting to be that person. They can go study it. I think that's where people are going to start to really find their voice too, because for a lot of us, I know that I don't know everything, but I would love a little assistance there. And so it's going to be a little bit different, but you nail integrating those together. It's a sweet spot.
Yeah, no, digital writing assistant. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah. And here's a guy that barely graduated from high school, did not go to college, and I can write pretty well because it's thinking, it's conversations, it's some intention. Yeah. And I don't have any spelling issues, spell check.
Yeah, I don't spell great in there. And that's why it's funny when he says, Man, I love video for that same reason of
Right.
I'd rather talk. I'd rather be conversational than
It's faster. It's better.
yeah. If I need to write, Britt knows. I'm gonna have her assistance to make sure it gets out. But let's talk about this. You know, Dave, so a lot of people, they may not know what a total cost analysis is, but I know this is a passion of yours on not just educating, but giving people the right information, guiding them through, making sure that not only home ownership is something that people think about, but they realize how attainable it could be for them. And whether that's today or I always say, look, knowing where you are today and knowing how you can get to where you want to go is important. But the TCA and the total cost analysis, some of you may not know about it, but I'm going to plug it. If you're not in the mortgage business, you may not know what we're talking about. TCA, total cost analysis, what is going on? Mortgage Coach and Dave, what your team has done is really created, I would say, a tool for people to compare mortgage options in a way that is simple, that's in their terms that they can understand. Because most of the time, loan officers are just quoting things left and right, and you're a consumer going, all I know to ask for is like rates and fees. That's all I know to shop for, right? So let's break down what is a TCA and why is it important?
Yeah, and I'll try to share this in a way for people outside the mortgage business, because what I am going to share now, I think, is just important financial literacy, baseline information that every American should know. And I think America would be healthier, more financially secure if everyone knew this and everyone practiced this. So we called it for many years the Mortgage Coach formula. Now that we're Trust Engine and it's Mortgage Coach and Sales Boomerang and we're building this borrower intelligence platform, I really just want to call it financial freedom lending. And if you want to someday own a home, if that's a goal of yours, and you want to achieve financial freedom to where you have achieved that destination, whatever that is to you, you need to follow this formula that I'm going to share with you. And so first of all, every time you get into debt, whether that's a car loan, whether that's a credit card debt, especially a mortgage debt, because it's such a large, long-term, expensive proposition, you need options. Like there's no way around it. There's always an option with points, without points, 5-year ARM, 2-1 buy down. There are always options. And if you don't look at options and look at them based off of the cost of time that matters to you. Yes. So if it's a house that you're buying and you only want to have it for 5 years, who cares what the cost is in 30 years? Right. You're doing it for a 5-year time horizon. And by the way, this goes for every asset or every debt you get into. How long are you going to have it? And what's the total cost of that? So that's why we call it the total cost analysis. Because if you're not looking at options, you're not looking at the cost over time, you can't make an informed decision. And then the third component, just 3 formulas to this financial freedom lending formula is, what if I took option A versus option B? Because there's always going to be one that's less expensive than the other. And I took that savings difference and I either prepaid my liability, your mortgage, or I invested that at a return on investment. Right now, treasuries are like 4.6%. There's always places that you can invest your money at 4 to 5%, right. And sometimes 10%, sometimes even more than that.
Sure.
So if you're not, because you're not going to hit financial freedom. Like if you're not options, cost over time, now how can I take that extra money to achieve financial freedom, whether that's paying off your debt, which Dave Ramsey, that's what Dave would say is use that to accelerate the debt reduction until you're debt free and then invest. But whatever the financial planner thinks, whatever you think, it's 3 parts: options, cost over time, investment strategies to achieve financial freedom. So that's it. As a consumer listening to this, as someone who borrows, make sure your loan officer is delivering that formula to you. For all you loan officers out there, we have a platform called Mortgage Coach by Trust Engine that will help you do that quickly, efficiently, effectively, in a way that integrates with your tech stack.
And I love that. I will say I love your passion, but your mission of every customer should have that option today. So if you're listening to this and you're like, hey, Brian, I am looking to buy a home this year, ask for that TCA from your mortgage advisor, right?
Absolutely. And,
our team is obviously at Revolution. We're pushing those. We have a lot of people on that. We're moving more onto the platform to get them educated on it. This is not only a differentiator, but I always think about if I want to add value add, right? I just don't want to be this transaction coordinator where I'm just quoting stuff. I want to add value. And to your point, to build a relationship, if you slow down and you take the little bit extra time and do it well, think about the referrals you're creating for the future. Think about the relationship. Think about the advice you gave them. You see them at the ball game or at church or somewhere, and you're like, I know I gave them the best and most sound advice based on their situation. Versus, man, I quoted them something. I hope it works out for them, for the next 3 to 5 years. We're not hoping and praying that that's the way it's going to go. So I would challenge everybody listening is if you're a consumer, get this. Make sure you get this when you're shopping. If you're an originator, you're in the mortgage, real estate space, make sure you're using tools. If you're not, you're getting left behind.
Well, it's just a core tenet of financial literacy. And so can you win a loan without doing that? Sure. But can you deliver a core tenet of financial literacy to a consumer and not do it? Absolutely not. Yeah. Most consumers don't realize the power, the true power to them personally of prepaying their mortgage by $100. They don't know top of mind the power of investing that money and compounding it with a financial advisor. And so I push the industry to do that. And if you're a realtor, if you're a consumer, push the mortgage professional you speak to. And if they're not, maybe you should find one that is.
I love it. Well, let's shift a little bit to, you've had quite the entrepreneurial journey and you've done some very successful things so people can understand. What have you learned? I'm always curious to this. What have you learned in your journey that you'd say, okay, these are the things, the lessons I wish I had known or that have helped you become successful throughout a couple of decades? You've been in the game, right? So It's not like you just showed up last week or 5 years ago and said, I'm an entrepreneur. No, you've got real street experience. What are those lessons?
Yeah, well, I wish I would have known younger that success is just persistence, hard work over time. You can be in the top 10% of anything if you'll work hard enough and never give up. Like that, those two ingredients are things that they were tenets. I don't know how much of it was just my genes,
sure,
and how much of it was my upbringing. But, I've always had work ethic and I've always had a never give up mentality. And so those are definitely things that have led to the success I've had. I mean, Mortgage Coach is not a one-hit wonder. I mean, that was a 25-year, journey. Now, when I founded that company, it wasn't like, oh, I want to build this company that, it has reshaped the mortgage industry and that, 30+ thousand loan officers use. That wasn't the goal. But if you work hard enough and you never give up, you're going to have a certain level of success. So that's lesson one. That I've learned. I think that core tenet of my advice makes a difference. Mm-hmm. Like I kind of got lucky falling into that value proposition, but the more I have done life and I've lived that value proposition, I think it is a core value proposition that just about anybody in any business could get as a personal mantra, and one to live that and execute on that. You do. You got to read. You got to listen to podcasts. You have to mastermind. Like you cannot become that human being. My advice makes a difference, and not put in the work to learn and to live. And so I've just learned that I don't have a tattoo, but there's 3 or 4 things that if I was ever to get a tattoo, that is one thing that I would consider. It's just been a core tenet and North Star in my life, and I would share that with others.
I mean, it's almost the success formula for you. And I love that because when you go back to it, a lot of people want, these wild ideas or different ways to get there. And it's like, no, guys, like hard work, consistency over time, and not giving up. It is a recipe and it's a formula that people can now go, okay, I can do that in my own. When I'm getting down or things aren't going my way, I can go do this. And so they know that's there.
A thought that just hit me thinking about a compass. If you really think of hard work, never give up, that's, north and south. If you think of advice, be someone whose advice matters, that's a place. And if I had let's round out a compass and have, a fourth, I would just say, have fun, play loose. Mm-hmm. There's a longer story where I started saying that to myself and thinking it, but it's also been a core tenet, create content. Like when we had the 4 of us, and we were all getting together and you guys, well, Dave, what are we going to talk about? And inside, I was just going, let's just have fun, play loose.
That's right.
And magic happens when you have fun and you play loose.
Isn't that the truth? Well, let's talk about having fun and playing loose, because you're going to launch your podcast, and there's probably some people listening out there going, I want to do a podcast, or maybe they've started one, but they just really didn't go into it. So one, tell us about why are you doing it, and let's give a little preview to like what is the Savage Insights, right? That's what it is?
That is where I have landed. So I've been wanting to do this for a couple of years, and I have been the CEO of Mortgage Coach, and I have had what some people call a podcast, but it's a YouTube channel.
Sure.
But it's only content that can be consumed on this YouTube channel. I have only interviewed people that are mortgage coaches, people that are either, in the community. I have interviewed authors and folks. But now in my new role as Chief Innovation Officer for Trust Engine, we want to play bigger. We want to scale this thing. We want to change how people get into debt in America. Like our mission and our belief is that all borrowers can achieve financial freedom. So I want to go beyond mortgage, and I also want to just take it home. I feel like I'm at the base camp of Mount Everest. Take it home. So I want to have a podcast that broadens, who I would interview. I want to be able to have a conversation with someone that not only impacts a mortgage professional. I'm sure that, it'll be very popular in the mortgage industry.
Yeah.
But I want more entrepreneurs to hear my story, hear what I want to talk about. And I want to have consumers go like, hey, if I'm working with a loan officer and they're not a mortgage advisor, you know what? I think to make this shift and this change, I need some content that goes beyond mortgage. So calling it Savage Insights, I'm going to interview people that inspire me, people that I think will inspire people that want to achieve financial freedom in America, people that want to be entrepreneurs, obviously people that want to be in mortgage and succeed, but I want to go beyond that.
I love it. Well, I know we're all thankful that you're doing it, because what I have found is people that step out into that and they start to launch whatever it is, and your YouTube channel is killer. I'll just say, plug in that. But now the podcast is going to give you a different vehicle.
It is. I'm fired up about it.
Yeah, it should be. So we're going to plug that. When it rolls out, I'll be one of the biggest fans. So let's wrap with this. We talked earlier about, we didn't get into the dad side, and I know your son played lacrosse, and like at a high level, by the way, Syracuse, right?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, baller. I watched some of the videos of things he was doing, CrossFit-esque, and all this strength stuff you would share with me. As a dad, as a business leader and all this, I'm always curious, this one truth that you've learned. Like if you were going to leave one thing to your kids, what would be the truth you would want to leave them?
Well, I don't remember what year it was. I can't remember if Kelly and I had our first child. I've been married for 31 years.
Yeah.
And there was just this couple, and they just loved each other. They just radiated. We had sat next to them at a bar having dinner somewhere, and we're just... And we'd asked them, we started kind of interviewing them, masterminding with them, what's your secrets, And I don't remember everything they said, but I know what Kelly and I came away from that exchange with was that, there's a lot of things you want to accomplish with your kids when you raise them. But we decided that we're going to have really two core tenets, and that is unconditional love. Like they're going to grow up in a family of unconditional love, and they're going to feel unconditional love for the rest of their lives. And, brother and sister love, and work ethic and discipline. Like they will know, because Kelly and I, we're both hard workers. The discipline part, some parts of our lives we are, some we're not, but there's just going to be those two things. So I think, and then the other piece I would say is it's not pushing that upon them. It's demonstrating that for them, like how we live as a family. And so I think just that love and that work ethic, and it's worked well. Both our kids are very loving. We call the four of us the core four.
Yeah.
That's like our little internal code. And talk to me in 20 years, but I feel like that it's feeling like it was a good recipe, and that's my advice.
I love it. You got to rewind that and listen to it again, because the 30 plus years of being married, and then your daughter's worked with you some as well. And then I'm watching,
Sydney.
You guys are doing all this stuff, and I love your posts and your pictures. If you guys are looking for some inspiration, you're a new parent or you're married and all that, like I love your stuff, because being a family person myself, it's like just to see that, it's like, okay, that's alive and well. So make sure you follow Dave for that. But where should they connect with you after the show to get more from you?
Yeah, in business, I'm pretty intentional about the content I create. in LinkedIn. So definitely a place where I probably put the most thought and intention. I'm an Instagram guy. I mean, I remember I started using Instagram probably if you look at my first post, it was probably 2 to 3 weeks after Instagram came out.
Wow.
People don't know it, but I was a photography minor in college and loved photography. And when I was like, wait, take pictures, make them look cooler. Now, this was before Instagram was a big deal. And for me, it was just like my own little personal family journal.
Yeah.
But I like Instagram. Like if I wasn't a businessman on a mission to change how people get into debt, that might be the only social media I personally use. But yeah, LinkedIn. And then of course our Facebook group and our YouTube channel. I mean, I try to create social media for good, and so that both the Trust Engine, that's leadership for lenders, and the Mortgage Coach one is just, Netflix for loan officers. Those are places that I would recommend you check out.
So one thing we didn't cover that you and I were talking about earlier is your nonprofit, First IQ. You've been working on this. Tell us what it is, what it's about, and so we can learn a little bit more.
Yeah, so First Home IQ, and anyone listening, you go to firsthomeIQ.com, has been on my mind for a long time, and First Home IQ is really dedicated to financial literacy for the next generation. Like, I don't know about anyone listening to this, but when I graduated from high school, which I barely did, I was not financially literate. And there was really very little resource content to do so. And so I've co-founded this with Todd Bookspan, the founder of Win by Noon, and Kristen Messerly, who is the chief spokesperson, and really running this nonprofit. But it's dedicated to inspiring and educating the next generation. We're trying to create content age 16, old enough to drive, age 21, old enough to drink, so that everyone that goes through that window is inspired around homeownership. Like there's a trend in America of not buying real estate as quickly as you can, as young as you can.
Yeah.
And there's also just a renter mentality that's getting, like you can buy everything with 3 easy payments, or 4 easy payments.
Yeah.
Apple Pay just came out with their 4 easy payment option. And by the way, no problem with that. Like there's times where using that may be a great decision, or it's a decision you want to make. But we want to create content that really inspires that next generation around financial literacy, around financial freedom, around investing in real estate. So check it out.
Guys, you got to follow Dave, my friend here. Not only is he making a difference in the mortgage community and real estate, but he can make a difference in your entrepreneurial life. And so this is why we want to showcase the best of the best and help you find your competitive edge. You've heard Dave shared several things that he's overcome, but now he's using those to be strengths today. So as you listen to this, think about what is your competitive edge and how can you use that in the service of others today. Thank you, guys. Talk to you in the next episode. See you.
Take care.